Time for the Brian Ruiz Show on May 11th, 2020. We're going to talk about Buddhist view on psychic powers with Venerable Pannobhasa Mahatera in Stockton, California. So welcome back to the show, Venerable Pannobhasa.
Yeah, hail Brian.
I know the Western view
of in there. There we go.
Yes.
Don't want my arm to be off camera, then people won't know.
That's true. So I guess Westerners have a different idea of psychic power, or Western science does, and Buddhism is something more accepted or understood, and the causes behind it, right?
Yeah. It's like most people nowadays, I think if they were asked, would admit that they've had some kind of psychic experience in their life. Even though like science can't really explain it, and so a lot of materialist people will just say it's all bullshit or whatever, but still the majority of people will admit that they've had some kind of psychic experience, like maybe a precognitive dream. You dream about something happening and then it happens just the way you dreamt it, or like you're thinking about someone you haven't talked to in years, and then the phone rings and you just know that it's them for some reason. Yeah. Or even just like seeing an apparition, like seeing a ghost or something. You know, a lot of people see a ghost or something like that, and it's not necessarily a psychic power, but it's like a paranormal event that science really can't explain, and kind of fits under the same category, you know, like parapsychology or something like that. So, yeah, I think most people have some belief in it or have some experience with it, even though materialistic science can't really explain it very well. Although even nowadays, like quantum theory allows for really weird stuff to happen. And like in modern physics, there's the whole idea that it's the viewer or the observer that really determines what is seen, that kind of stuff. So there is kind of an open door to like parapsychology, psychic powers, even in modern science, now that it's not completely materialistic anymore. Now that there's more human psychology mixed in with the observation of reality. But with Buddhism, I mean, Buddhism obviously allows for the existence of psychic powers, even though like a lot of Western Buddhists are really just sort of like materialistic neo-Marxists with a little Buddhist flavoring at it, and they don't even believe in nibbana. You know, they don't even believe in enlightenment really, or karma or anything.
I know the Insight Meditation Society, they refer to the classical teachings of Buddhism. Like back in those days, these crazy people believe these stupid things, but now we're so modern in the 21st century, you know, we're atheist materialists. Oh, I like that up there. But we're talking about real Buddhism.
Yeah, or, you know, like original Buddhism, traditional Buddhism, scriptural Buddhism as found in the texts themselves. And I think the main way that Buddhism explains the possibility of psychic powers is that Buddhism is more idealistic, or idealist in a philosophical sense, where it's the mind really is determining reality. You know, like the very first verse of the Dhammapada, you know, let's see, phenomena are, Dhamma. Okay, so
the mind's the forerunner of everything, or something like that.
Yeah, mind is the forerunner of phenomena. Mind is chief. They are mind made. And even though Theravada Buddhism accepts the ultimate reality of physical matter, still it also accepts that physical matter can be created by the mind. You know, like karma or karma. You know, it causes things to happen. Even though it's a mental state, it causes physical events to happen. So in Buddhism, much more than in Western like science or empiricism, the mind really does influence the world we live in. You know, it makes things happen. And if you're just a normie, then you're pretty much stuck with just the rules that are imposed upon you. Sort of like in the movie The Matrix, where the normies, the people that are completely blue-pilled in the Matrix, they can't really break the rules. But, you know, once you learn that you can break the rules, and, you know, you can practice breaking the rules, or you can just get stronger where you potentially can break the rules easier just by strengthening your mind through like meditation and yogic practice and that kind of thing, then it becomes much more possible to happen. And there are a lot of meditators, especially like Indian ones, like in Hinduism, where they just deliberately cultivating, you know, meditation for the sake of getting the psychic powers, and then they can, you know, they can supposedly do miracles or whatever.
I think in Buddhism, the emphasis on jhana, like you get very deep concentration states. This is how you develop psychic powers. I guess through deep concentration is like the way to develop psychic powers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So your mind gets strong enough that you're able to break the rules to some degree, because the rules can be broken. So it's like, you know, the laws of physics or the laws of nature or whatever are just sort of a stable configuration, but it's not the only possible configuration. So you can kind of twist things with the power of your mind, supposedly. That's like the Indian explanation. Or if you want to get even more idealist, then, you know, it's like, you know, your mind is just generating your reality. Like a lot of Mahayana Buddhists, like the Tibetan Buddhists would go with that idea, where this is just kind of a dream. It's all an illusion that's created by your mind, that physical matter isn't ultimately real. And then, of course, it's, you know, it's like you're dreaming at night. You're just dreaming your reality. So, of course, if you're off the normie path, then you're going to be dreaming possibilities that aren't there for most people.
So you're saying that Tibetan Buddhists, you can visualize a deity like Chenrezig and kind of make that your reality, make whatever reality you want, in a sense.
Yeah, that would be like the Mahayanist point of view. Like you really persuade yourself, you know, you have got the faith of a grain of mustard seed that you can walk on water, then you can really walk on water.
And Vajrayana, not just Mahayana, Tibetan Vajrayana.
Yeah.
They're really into the deity visualization stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how about if someone sees a ghost? I guess from a Buddhist view, there really is a ghost, there's a being there in the ghost realm, but you have the mental power, concentration, psychic ability to see the ghost, whereas most other people can't see that ghost.
It doesn't take psychic powers to be able to see a ghost. I'm pretty sure. Like little kids are more likely to see ghosts than grown-ups. So
I've never seen a ghost. I've known friends who've seen ghosts, but I've never seen one myself.
I supposedly have. When I was a little kid, I could see a ghost, supposedly. And,
you mean your parents told you that you saw one?
No, I would just see this lady. But, you know, when you're a toddler, you know, I was like 3 or 4 years old. You know, I just vividly remember this lady, and she was always smiling. She wouldn't talk to me, and she obviously liked me. And I would talk to her, but she wouldn't say anything back.
Well, I didn't know this. This is an amazing story. So you saw a ghost.
Maybe.
This was in Washington State, right?
Yeah, this was like Aberdeen, Washington. When I was
Do you think it was a dead relative, like a grandmother?
No, it's the house that we moved into. There was an old lady who lived there who died in the house before my father bought the house.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's probably her. I wonder if you can identify her from what you remember.
Well, that's what my father was doing. He was like asking me to describe the lady, and then he was like comparing that with what the neighbors remembered about her. And according to him, yeah, it was probably her. But again,
so at the time when you were a toddler, your dad was getting this. You told your dad, and he got the description from you at the time.
Yeah. Well, he was really into that sort of thing. He'd seen ghosts before. Yeah. He did seances. He talked to, you know, supposedly spirits that are channeled through women in trance, and he was really into experimenting with all that kind of ESP.
Yeah.
He called it the occult, you know, like witchcraft and just like you know, psychokinesis and all that kind of thing.
You had a really cool dad. But your experience is quite astonishing. So it seems to me for sure you must have seen a ghost. What do you think?
It's possible, but then again, you know, I was like 3 or 4 years old at the time, so I can't really it's hard to be sure.
But you probably know the difference.
When I was little.
If you know the difference between imagining, visualizing something, and actually seeing something that's there. You understand the perceptual difference. Even if you're a kid, you probably can remember the difference, right?
Yeah, I assume so, but I really can't be sure because, you know, something when I was a little kid, it's hard to say. And then there was one time, just like maybe 10 years ago, or maybe I saw some kind of apparition, but it's really hard to say.
You want to tell the audience, was this in Burma, like in a cave or something?
Yeah. It was in Burma, and I had just filled a bucket of water, and I was walking back towards the cave with this 5-gallon bucket of water like on my shoulder, And so I'm barefoot, which I was almost always barefoot in Burma. So I'm kind of looking down at the ground so I don't step on, a sharp rock or a scorpion or something like that. And I see somebody coming out of the forest down the trail towards me. And I'm not looking directly at them, but I can see that he's wearing like a blue shirt, and I can see his clothes. I see that he's not a monk. He's like a lay person. He's got black hair and everything. So, he looks like a Burmese village guy. And as soon as he sees me, he comes out into the clearing. As soon as he sees me, he just takes off running as fast as he can. He just zips over behind this building that I was walking by. And then I'm thinking, well, if somebody's at a monastery and as soon as they see a monk, they take off running, he must be like a thief or up to no good or something. So I look and there's nobody there. And then I'm thinking, well, when he took off running like that, he was going awful fast and I didn't hear a sound. It was just completely silent when he was running. And then I'm looking on the ground for footprints or anything and I don't see anything, although it was hard ground. So then I'm thinking, wow, I was perfectly healthy. I wasn't sleep deprived or anything. So I was, in a perfectly healthy state. And, just something that you wonder about, maybe he just took off and hid or something and just runs really fast and doesn't make noise. Or, so anyway, I'm telling some Burmese supporters, these village ladies, that I had seen this apparition. And I was a little apprehensive because Burmese are really afraid of ghosts. And so they might be afraid to come to the monastery anymore, maybe. But they seemed to know immediately who I was talking about. They knew the identity of that ghost.
Really?
Just from what I said. It was like
But did they know him as a human being before?
Yeah, he was supposedly the uncle of one of the women that I was talking to, who had he had lived at that very same monastery in that same building that I was walking by. He was like a novice, a samanera, a koyenji they're called. And he was really a lax one because he was living with his wife in this building and everything. And then he dropped out or he died shortly afterwards. And they had the idea that somebody had poisoned him because they thought he was like a wicked fake monk or something.
A bad monk having sex with his wife. That's a bad thing to do.
Yeah, well, he wasn't a fully ordained monk, but still, he was like in lesser orders, as they would say in Christianity. But still, yeah. And the Burmese believe that if you're murdered, you're more likely to become a ghost. If you die a violent death, you're much more likely to be reborn as a ghost.
I believe that too. I think it's true.
Yeah, and so the Burmese, the pre-Buddhist religion of the Burmese was called the Nat cult. Nat is the Burmese word for like a deva, and all of their nats died violent deaths because a person who dies a violent death, their spirit, if they stay on earth, is more powerful, more formidable. And so like a lot of Burmese people are especially afraid of like military cemeteries. Like ordinary cemeteries are scary enough already, but like a war cemetery where everybody there, or a lot of them, died violent deaths. They're called asane, which is like a green spirit, and people are just really scared of those. So, but anyway, yeah, in Buddhist culture, people just naturally accept that it's just reality. It's true.
But the woman identified him as her real uncle, so it must have been a ghost. That she identified him, right?
Well, she didn't see him or anything, and so. Maybe.
What about the blue shirt and the black hair?
Well, everybody has black hair in Burma except me.
Yeah.
So
I guess you think it's probably a ghost in your view, right?
That is definitely a plausible hypothesis. Either that, it was just some kind of weird hallucination. But I've never had anything like that before when I was perfectly straight and sober and healthy and not sleep deprived or anything like that.
It's not likely you'd have a hallucination, that state of mind, right?
Yeah, I've hallucinated before on drugs or from a fever or from sleep deprivation, but never when I was just perfectly healthy. So yeah, it's just one of those inexplicable things. You can't really prove anything. But yeah, I wouldn't say that would be my most likely case of a psychic experience in my life, but yeah, it's a possibility that I saw some kind of apparition. And from the Buddhist point of view, a ghost or a spirit is at a different level of matter. You know, it's like coarse matter. You know, it's like a coarser vibration to
Yeah, it's
the
lower, right?
molecules or whatever. Yeah,
And
it's
a deva
for
would
a
be
ghost.
higher matter, higher vibration for a deva.
Yeah, yeah. And so not everybody can see them, except I think that like primitive peoples, so-called primitive peoples, and like children and maybe animals, it's, you know, they just have a fuzzier like a wavelength that they're working on. You know, like a civilized modern person, you fine tune your the vibration of your mind, or what you're accessible to, just to make it more precise. And you know, you can be more exact, like more the scientific mind. You know, it's sort of a laser beam focused kind of mental state, or you know, it doesn't accept the fuzzy stuff on the edges. So you just kind of focus down into like a tighter beam or a tighter wavelength or whatever, or a frequency. And kids, you know, or like pre-modern people, it's just sort of a fuzzier, broader kind of what you're accessible to, what you're able to see or experience. So that's kind of my hypothesis for why like pre-modern traditional people and also little kids may be more likely to see ghosts or
Yeah,
apparitions.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's possible.
I remember my cat, when I was a teenager, just jumped up on the couch and was staring at the wall, was really alarmed. It's a very quiet night at home. I go, what's wrong with the cat? So I thought the cat must have saw a ghost. That's what I believed at the time.
Yeah, well, my father was into that sort of thing. So we had haunted houses when I was a kid. We had a poltergeist in our house once. Although the parapsychologists say that poltergeist phenomena generally isn't really caused by ghosts. It's caused by I can't remember what it's called.
It's teenagers, right? Teenage psychic energy.
RSPK, I think it's called, which is like repeating spontaneous psychokinesis. Where, yeah, it's usually like an emotionally troubled teenager that is sort of causing weird stuff to happen subconsciously. Although in that case, I'm not sure who would have been the focus of it. I think it probably my father, because this weird stuff happened around him a lot. But we had poltergeist, you know, this stuff spontaneously breaking, that kind of thing. Nothing really outrageous.
Wow.
Yeah, but I remember, I think I probably told you this story before, but one summer my father was hiring a housekeeper, and we were all sitting at the kitchen table, and he was telling her that if you find any broken dishes or anything like that, don't blame the kids right off the bat, because there's a poltergeist in the house, and sometimes dishes will just spontaneously self-destruct. And she's like starting to grin at him, like one eyebrow is starting to go up, like she can't really decide whether he's joking or crazy, you know? And then just a matter of seconds after he finishes that sentence, a glass ashtray right on the table, right in between them on the corner of the table, makes this sound like zink and just splits into two halves, and the two halves slide about 1.5 inches away from each other.
Wow.
And all of a sudden she stops smiling, because all of a sudden she's taking it real seriously, because the ashtray just self-destructed right in plain sight of everybody.
Wow. So it was like the ghost was taking cues from your dad.
Yeah, I guess.
Almost like he's working for your dad.
Well, my father, you know, he did seances and he could see spirits, or at least, you know, he believed that he could see spirits. And so they kind of followed him around. Or at least that was
I believe that. That can be problematic from a Buddhist view. It's probably not recommended from a Buddhist view to be doing that, right?
Yeah, from a Buddhist point of view, like for a monk to do seances would be called animal knowledge. And it's not encouraged. Like in the first like 10 suttas or so of the Digha Nikaya, it's on this list of things that a monk shouldn't do, and it's animal knowledge, it's called.
Did the Buddha call it the priestcraft? You should avoid the priestcraft?
That would be different, I think. But there's one, questioning a girl in trance, which would be a woman who's like a channeler, you know. So that would be one. Questioning a deva, which would probably include other ways of trying to communicate with higher beings. Like nowadays, you know, you got Ouija boards and stuff, that kind of thing. divination, different kinds of divination,
I'm
fortune
thinking of
telling.
Edgar Casey. He was probably had a David talking through him, and people asked the David questions to Edgar Casey.
Well, Edgar Casey, his explanation was that he was going into a trance state where he could consult the Akashic records. Yeah, which isn't really a Buddhist concept, but that was his explanation.
Yeah, it's not a Buddhist concept. Is that a Hindu concept, the Akashic records?
Maybe.
I wonder if it could be true, even if the Buddha never mentioned it. What do you think?
Yeah,
Like
well,
that, there's a record of
obviously,
everything.
like the Pythagorean theorem is true, even though the Buddha never mentioned it. You know, so
Yeah.
there's all kinds of true things that the Buddha never mentioned.
Another one is the chakras. A lot of Buddhists like chakras, but the Buddha never mentioned chakras. But it could be true. What do you think?
Uh, yeah, maybe. I mean, that's sort of a yoga thing, and then you've
Yeah.
got the nadis, the different energy, like the energy channels and stuff through the body. That's really a big thing in,
Chinese
like,
medicine.
Chinese medicine.
Yeah. The Buddha never mentioned that either, right?
No, he doesn't really. Like the ancient Buddhist texts don't have a whole lot of medical stuff. There's a little bit, and it's
Yeah.
fairly primitive. You know, like the four elements. You know, if you get sick, it's because your elements are out of balance, that kind of stuff. Too much wind element causes stiffness in the joints and like arthritis and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was fairly primitive, like, you know, Iron Age medicine. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's true. Yeah.
Buddhism
Back to psychic powers.
definitely accepts the possibility of psychic powers, though,
Oh
even
yeah.
though for a monk, it's against the rules for a monk to show psychic powers.
Yeah. To
You know,
lay
like,
people, they can do it to other monks, right?
yeah, like, you know, there's all these lists. There's the standard list of all these psychic powers, which includes, you know, like walking through walls or walking on water or like moving through the ground as though it were water, or, you know, there's all, you know, seeing your own past lives, knowing the minds of others. You know, there's this standard list of these psychic powers that are attainable through high meditative attainment.
Yeah.
And a monk isn't allowed to demonstrate any of that, especially to lay people. Maybe to another monk just to show he can do it or something, if they're alone together or something. But
Yeah, I think it's okay to other monks, right? So they could kind of evaluate each other's progress or teach and
yeah,
give
maybe.
advice.
Although in the suttas it says that the only psychic power that a monk should really practice is to look into the heart of the person that he's talking to see the best way of teaching them.
Oh, that makes sense. That's good because then you're not showing anything off either.
Yeah, you're not really showing anything off, but it's to the advantage of the person you're teaching.
Yeah, she mentioned Mahamagala, Buddha's number 2 chief disciple. He had the greatest psychic powers. He could dematerialize. He could go up to Tawatimsa heaven and talk to the devas. He could do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
Fly
yeah.
through the air. Yeah.
And then he wound up getting beaten to a pulp. He got murdered at the end. And then
It's
according to
karma.
the story, they tried to kill him like 2 times before, but he was able just to fly away. You know,
I
he
thought
made
he dematerialized. Did he just actually fly away?
yeah, I think he just made himself small and flew away or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And then finally he realized, using another psychic power, he looked back into his past and saw that he had done something really bad in a past life that really his karma necessitated that he get murdered.
Yeah, it
And
was
so the third time he just let them kill him.
yeah, the third time what happened, he remembered way back in a past life, he had this beautiful wife who said, you know, your aging mother, she's going to die anyways, just kill your mother, she's a nuisance. So he killed his mother to please his beautiful wife. So now I realize, oh, my karmic fruition. So
Yeah, well,
got beaten
beautiful
to
on the
death.
outside, beautiful on the outside and ugly on the inside.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
one of the things in Buddhism. If you kill one of your own parents, it's guaranteed of Avicii hell.
Avicii hell, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot we could say about psychic powers. Reading minds. I know sometimes people on Buddhist meditation retreats, they can read the mind of the person next to them the first time in their life, you know, then after the retreat, they can't because they're building up that concentration. So I think, yeah, concentration is very much a source of developing these psychic powers.
Yeah, and then from the Buddhist point of view, it's mainly, I mean, our experience is a creation of our own mind. So we're not, as Buddhists are not nearly as materialistic as, you know, the modern Western, you know, like a Marxist materialist or something, or just these devout scientists who is, it's like science is their religion. And I've met some scientists. I majored in biology and minored in chemistry in college, and you meet these professors that obviously they just think science is divine truth. It's like gospel truth.
Yeah, it's called scientism as a religious
belief.
Yeah.
It's like their religion, and then they're seeking meaning and self-worth and all that through participating in the scientific method. It's like they're adding their little brick to the intellectual Tower of Babel. That's how they find their meaning in life and their self-worth. And so
I think it just leads to a dry desert of gizmos. It doesn't give you inspiration or uplift
or
life after death.
Like as a biologist, I meet these people that, they've dedicated their lives to being the world's leading authority on some kind of weird worm, like a nematode worm or something. They're like the world's leading authority on this kind of nematode worms.
Wow. Nematode worm, #1 in the world.
Yeah. But from the Buddhist point of view, that's mainly the explanation, is that really the world we're living in is really generated by our own mind. And so it's the mind that controls what is possible. And most people are just kind of locked into the default setting, and they really can't, they don't even know that it's possible to break the rules. But ultimately it is possible to break the rules if you've got a strong enough mind and you've sort of got like a talent for it, or you just cultivated your mind to be able to do that sort of thing. Yeah. But it takes faith, because the people around you are also generating their reality, and if they're just devout materialists who are absolutely certain that it's impossible, then it makes it less possible. Like one of my favorite stories in the Bible or the New Testament is where Jesus, of course, he's famous for healing sick people, right? And he goes back to his hometown of Nazareth, and in Nazareth, the people there are like, hey, isn't that Jesus the carpenter's son? I mean, don't his brothers and sisters live here in town with us? Who does he think he is? And because they don't have any faith in him, then he can't do miracles there. I mean, he casts out a few devils or something, but he can't do miracles there because nobody believes in him. And so then he just moves on to the next town, and then he says, no prophet is without honor except in his own hometown. But still, it's not just your own ability to do something, but of course the karma of the people around you and what they are able to perceive or accept is also going to have an influence on what is possible.
Wow, like a shared reality, almost like these faith healers, these evangelists. Everyone gets into that state of mind, and then miracles happen.
Yeah, or like David Hume, who really was against the idea of miracles because he was against Christianity. And one of the arguments of Christianity is, you point to the Bible and say, look at all the miracles, that's proof. And he's just saying, it's like you should believe in a miracle only if the miracle itself is less miraculous than somebody lying about it or making it up. If somebody lying about it or making it up is less miraculous than the miracle itself, then you're probably wise just to accept, as more likely that it's just made up or whatever. But then he uses this argument that it's only from like remote or primitive places that the miracle stories really are, that they really get traction. And I would just say that really it's like I said before, it's the more primitive people that believe that it's possible. So they've got the faith to allow it to happen. So of course, a lot of miracle stories are just made up. I mean, there has been miracle stories made up about me when I was in Burma. Like I heard this one story that somebody had a picture of me flying over the city of Monua, which is the big city that was near my monastery.
Oh.
And I just joke, it's like, well, maybe it was somebody else because I don't remember doing that.
They saw a picture? Was there a picture of you that went flying?
I didn't see the picture, but I've had more than one person tell me that there's a picture of me like circulating through town in Monua of me flying over the city.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, probably most stories of miracles are just, superstitious people that are just making stuff up or just believe stuff that isn't necessarily true. But still, I mean, I do think that it is possible for stuff that's against the laws of physics to happen. And that's not just from a Buddhist point of view. It's also like experience, with my father and just, my experiences in life. That
You think of parapsychology too.
the laws of physics are just like a default setting, but I mean,
Yeah.
you can monkey with that.
But think of the last 50 years, like parapsychology, and like you even said with physics, this is more real even to science now. I mean, a lot of scientists would say this is true, or near-death experiences, even some of them are saying this is real, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it's possible now because of quantum physics, where you can have matter just appear out of emptiness, and so just almost anything is possible. It's just a matter of statistics. If something is really statistically unlikely, like all of a sudden, like another hand sprouting out of your forehead. I mean, theoretically, according to modern science, that is possible. It's just that the statistical odds of it happening are so extremely low that it's almost certainly not going to happen. But I guess, what's his name? Carl Jung, he wrote his essay on synchronicity. And supposedly Albert Einstein actually went to him and told him, go ahead and publish this because it really is not against modern science. And synchronicity is, it's sort of borderline, what we're talking about. It's not necessarily breaking the laws of physics, but it's just these weird coincidences that happen. So, yeah, that's
so true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I personally, I think probably most stories about weird stuff happening really are just stories, but still I don't think that it's impossible. And to some degree, like, what's his name? Rene Guénon. He's saying that really it's just the spiritual bankruptcy and the materialism of the modern age that causes it to be less possible or less likely to happen, just because people have no faith in it anymore. They believe that it's not possible, and so that makes it less likely to happen.
Yeah. I guess from a Buddhist view, we look at what's practical about psychic powers. Like you say, if you can see into someone's heart, see what their problem is, and give them advice, that's good.
Yeah, that's like the only valid excuse for a monk exercising psychic powers, according to
Yeah. Like healing people with psychic powers is probably not really so recommended, because if it's their karma to be sick and die, well, just let them be sick and die. That's karma. That's no need to intervene with that, right?
Yeah, and also if a monk does that, then he winds up with the same problem that Jesus has in the New Testament, where you got crowds of people following you around, not because they want to hear Dharma, but because they want you to heal grandma of her arthritis or heal their kid of his epilepsy or something.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, it's not recommended, eh?
Yeah.
Not the job of a monk. Yeah, so that raises the question, what's the use of psychic powers? What's good about psychic powers, and the pros and cons? And some of it's good, some of it's useful. And like the Buddha, he was not against monks using the psychic powers thing. He praised his monks that had psychic powers. That was a good thing, as long as they were within the rules.
Yeah. Well, like Moggallana would fly up into the heaven realms and talk with the gods and all that. I mean, like Tibetan Buddhism is really much more into that sort of thing. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Milarepa, but he started off as like a black magician.
Oh yeah, I learned about Milarepa. Yeah, did black magic, killed people,
Yeah.
He got enlightened later.
Yeah.
Though I think a lot of Tibetan stories are made up. I mean, they exaggerate. All their gurus are enlightened, or all the gurus do this.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of the Chinese Buddhist stuff too. I think, even nowadays, most stories of, enlightened gurus, they turn out not to be nearly as enlightened as the stories.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, probably most stories are not true, but some are true. Psychic powers are real, but a lot of stories you just can't believe.
Yeah. And I really didn't fly over the city of Monua, not that I can remember.
Well, you said they saw a picture of you, like a photograph of you, right?
Yeah. Must have been somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess it's a good thing to cultivate psychic powers. If you can build up your concentration, meditation, it's fine to do that. Maybe astral travel, if you want to do that, you can do it if you want. I think the Buddha described it as going up the tree of life, and it's going off on a branch. If you try to cultivate it too much, you might as well just stay on the path towards enlightenment.
Well, I mean, like remembering past lives or something like that could be useful. You can see like these recurring patterns of mistakes you've made or things you need to work on, that sort of thing. But then again, it's hard to prove that it's not just, kind of a figment of your subconscious imagination or whatever. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're better off just not bothering with it. That's like the Buddhist, the Theravada Buddhist attitude is, you shouldn't be trying to cultivate psychic powers. If it happens spontaneously, then that's fine, but you shouldn't really consider it to be a big deal, because then you can get a big head over it. You start power hungry, you turn into Caligula or something. So that's not good. And so if anything arises, especially if you're meditating, you just note it and let it go. You remember a past life, you just note it and let it go. It doesn't matter. You see devas or whatever, note it and let it go, and just keep meditating. And so it's really just kind of a side issue. It's not really the point of Dhamma. It can happen as a side effect, or like Hindus or whatever especially can cultivate that on purpose, or like witches or whatever.
Yeah. I guess that's the wisdom of the Buddha, right? Like that's what the Buddha taught, like not to emphasize that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's different. Like something like witchcraft or sorcery, that kind of thing. I think it's a different kind of principle than like abhinya in Buddhism, where a saint reaches this higher level where he's able to do things that ordinary people can't do. I think it's probably different, a different kind of principle going on with like witches or whatever.
Yeah, probably witches, they're developing a relationship with a deva or a spirit to attack someone else, something like that, getting into a relationship.
Well, my father's explanation was that he was dealing with a coven of witches that they would come together and do their spells.
Is this in Bellingham, Washington, or where?
No, this was maybe Alaska or maybe Aberdeen. It was before I was.
Aberdeen.
It was before my time.
Is Aberdeen on the coast?
Yeah.
Olympic Peninsula?
Just south of the Olympic Peninsula.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And he's saying that the witches, they'll do incantations, they all chant in unison, and sometimes even they'll do the body movements all the same, all in unison. So it's like magnifying, one person has like a small amount of psychic power, but you've got like 10 or 12 people all concentrating on the same thing, then that magnifies it and makes it stronger. And my grandfather, who was a Baptist minister, he used to practice, he used to experiment with this. He'd make, and maybe people at home, they want to try this. It'd be interesting. You take some stiff, light, shiny paper, like glossy paper or like onion skin typing paper, and you make a little pyramid. And then you take a cork or a candle and you stick a needle into the top of that, and then you balance the paper pyramid on top of that needle, so it's just kind of balanced there. And then with your mind, you can make it spin. And if you got a group of people there, it's easier because some people have more talent than others. And just to make sure that it's not like wind currents or anything in the room, like a draft, you can change direction and spin it the other way. You can stop it and start spinning it, the first way again. And that's like a good way of experimenting with the possibility of psychic powers that people could try at home if they want to.
Yeah, that would probably work. Yeah, something as light as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're raising question of what's worth it or not. Like you're saying, just let it go. You're not really trying too hard to cultivate. You're trying to cultivate your wisdom and your path to enlightenment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so from the Orthodox Theravada point of view is, if it happens, it happens, but you shouldn't be trying for it. And even if you get it, you shouldn't make a big deal out of it. Because if you make a big deal out of it, then it just becomes another stumbling block. It's just another obstacle to enlightenment.
Yeah, like your ego gets puffed up over it, you mean?
Yeah, it can. Or else you can use it to get what you want, and then you just get sidetracked in samsara, just living a more worldly life with.
Yeah, and you're wasting your time with things like that too. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else about psychic powers?
Oh, I would just say that I think it is possible, and they do happen.
Yeah.
So it's good. I mean, it's better just to be open-minded and be kind of skeptical and just suspend judgment and say, I don't know, than to just make up your mind, no, it's impossible, because in a way you're like closing the door to like miracles or like, good things happening that maybe won't happen if you just believe that they can't happen. So it's
Yeah.
just to rather than just say that's bullshit and it's impossible, just to say, well, maybe, and just kind of leave it blank, and then maybe it can still happen.
Yeah. When I was young, of course, I didn't know what was going on around age 5 to 8. I had a recurring experience. I'd be laying in bed at night. I'd become paralyzed, and I'd feel this vibrational state going through me, like zzz, and then I kind of start to lift up, like an out-of-body experience. But as I was scared, I was clinging to the side of my bed, and I lived in fear of this state coming over me. It might happen every month or two, but it was a recurring experience for a few years. I didn't know what it was, but now I regard it as an astral travel, because books on astral travel saying, well, first you feel this vibrational state, and then you separate, but the fear barrier is the big problem. So I never got past the fear barrier when I was a little kid. I didn't leave my body till I was like 16. But now I recognize, looking back on it, oh, that's what would happen to me as a little kid, That was my biggest sort of psychic experience as a little kid, because it was a recurring thing, and I was really aware of it. I never discussed it with my parents or my family. It's just my private little secret.
Yeah, I had similar things happen when I was a kid.
Yeah. Was it like the astral travel, like a vibrational type thing?
It was just sort of like this powerful mental state, kind of, maybe a vibrational thing in the body also, that would just sort of like, it was so powerful that I couldn't stop it. So I was kind of afraid of it. Just this weird feeling that would come over me. And it was such a powerful thing that I was kind of scared of it, but it would happen sometimes. Just like this really intense, mental state.
Oh, see, I'm bipolar, and I first had that at age 17. It was exhilarating. I really liked it, like a really heightened state of consciousness, like beyond your average human state, and I really wanted to get it back. Was it something like that, like a heightened, exhilarating, positive state?
It wasn't necessarily exhilarating and positive. I mean, it was like a heightened state of awareness, but then it was like I was out of control when it would happen. Not that I would do anything weird. It was just that like my mind was no longer under my own control anymore, under the control of my ego or whatever. So it would just get into this state and stay there, and I couldn't really stop it unless I just have to like shake myself, just kind of, sit up. If I was lying in bed, just kind of sit up and shake my head or make noise or something in order to cause the mental state to subside.
Wow. But looking back on it now as a trained Buddhist monk, do you think it was like a David channeling through you or ghost possession? What's your analysis of it now?
Oh, I have no idea what it was. So I can't really say.
How small were you at that time? Like what age?
Oh, I think it started maybe when I was like 10 or 12.
Oh.
Yeah. And then even like when I was in my 30s, every once in a while, there would be like a similar state. But by then, it wasn't as strong and it wasn't as scary.
Oh, my vibrational state would last into my 30s or 40s. I remember when I moved to Vancouver when I was 21, I had the vibrational state, and I knew about astral travel, so I was trying to leave my body. I lifted my astral arms like this. They looked milky white. I could see my astral arms like that. And I remember once even sitting up as far as I could go. But I think I chickened out. I just couldn't get past the fear barrier. And also how it happens when you sleep north to south with your head to magnetic north. When my current apartment now, I sleep east-west just for convenience. So I haven't really had it in about 10 years.
Yeah, I just don't have much psychic talent. My father was more into that. So like the stories of psychic traveling and past life regressions and all of that, mainly I got those from my father as a kid. But we can talk about that some other time. We've probably been going for quite a while now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I had more of it as a kid and a young man, less now. But I don't care. Like you say, I'm a Buddhist. What do I care? I'm not so interested in that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay, well, it's been a good talk. Yeah, about 45 minutes. So thank you very much. I'm sure these kind of things are interesting to the audience. So it's also a timeless subject. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people are still going to have an interest in psychic powers.
Yeah, we could do a whole talk just on my weird father some other time.
Yeah, we should. He had a cool father.
Cool and weird.
Yeah. Well, my father, he was good. He got the family into meditation. He meditated for the rest of his life. He was into that, and Eastern philosophy as well. But he wasn't into all the psychic woo like your dad.
Not into the occult.
Yeah, no, he wasn't into that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you kindly, Venerable pannobhasa. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Catwoman and Wonder Woman. Watch the Brian Show.